Hello and welcome to the webinar. Really great to have you with me this evening, and we're going to talk today about how you build an outstanding property portfolio, one property at a time, by just buying what I call diamond properties. Really outstanding properties. We've got a couple of hundred people registered for the webinar today, so I'm going to just allow a couple of minutes for them to get logged on. While we're doing that, I'm just going to ask a couple of very quick questions just to get a feel for who's in the audience, so I can make sure that what I present today is the right stuff, the right material for you guys listening. So if we can just ask two very quick questions. The first is whether you've heard me speak before or not. You may have been on my webinars before, you may have been at my one-day events or my three-day mentorship and kind of heard me lots. You may not have heard me at all. So if you just click very quickly on this one, I'm just asking very simply, have you heard Aran speak before? Hopefully we won't get any not sures. If you are not sure, hopefully it's actually that you haven't, rather than I wasn't memorable enough. But answer honestly. I can see, and thank you for clicking so quickly. If you're struggling to click, by the way, if you download the app for GoToWebinar, lots of people in the industry use this software, so it's very useful for you to have the app. It allows you to interact, it allows you to ask questions, and later on get those questions answered. But if you download the app, you'll be able to interact. So we've got about 75% of the audience that have heard me speak before, so welcome back to you people, and we've got about 25% that haven't, and so for you, welcome for the first time. I'm not going to spend a chunk of time covering who I am, who Aran Curry is today. So if you're wanting to know more about me and my background, then if you go to www.arancurry.co.uk, that's www.arancurry.co.uk. You'll be able to find out a lot more about me, there, and see more of my background, etc. Okay, so let's close that poll down. The second question that I wanted to ask, again, very simple one, is how many buy-to-let properties do you currently own? So it might be that you don't own any at all. It might be that you own 1 to 3, you might be in that 4 to 10 bracket, or you might be in that 11 plus bracket. Whichever one of those you're in, I'm going to give you great value tonight. Doesn't matter, but if you just click, just so again I know what my my audience is. Just while you're clicking on that, how do you get the most value out of the next hour? We're going to be together for an hour. I'm going to give you some great educational content. My recommendation is get yourself comfortable. Get yourself in a space. If your partner or loved one is watching TV and you're sat on an app of some description, I'd go sit somewhere else so you don't disturb them and they don't disturb you. Grab a drink, so you've got a drink ready. Grab a pen and paper to take notes, because you don't want to spend the next hour and not get any learnings. So I'm going to give you some great learnings. You're going to want to take some notes, I'm sure. So get yourself set up. So thank you for clicking so quickly. We've got about, which is pretty normal, pretty standard, about 30% of the audience haven't got any properties at all. We've got about another 33% in that 1 to 3 bracket, then about another chunk of 30% in that 4 to 10 bracket, and then 10% in the 11 plus. So as I said, wherever you are in that grouping, you will get great value from the webinar. So, okay. So what are we going to, I'm going to get started. I know there are some people just still joining us, but let's get started. Let's get on with it, and they can come and join in as they arrive. So what are we going to cover today? Well, the first thing I'm going to cover is whether you want to be a property investor or have a property job. You see, a property investor trades their money for more money. Somebody with a property job might be trading their money for more money, but they're also trading their time for more money. Many people think about property and think, I want to invest this money, I want to get my money working for me, and before they know it, in a year or two, they've created themselves a second job. Okay, that's not my goal for you unless that's what you want. The second thing we're going to cover is the key rules for buy-to-let, what I call family-let properties. How do we make sure we only ever buy diamonds? I call them my 6 C's. We'll come on to that shortly. Thirdly, really excitingly for tonight, I'm going to share with you how the professionals take their profits tax efficiently, and you can too. You know, with the recent tax changes, people have been stressed about tax changes. People have been stressed about how it impacts on them. You literally can use the same tax strategies that somebody uses, like myself, with over 200 properties. You can use whether you've got 100, 50, 10, 5, 2, or even 1 property, you can use the exact same tax strategies. And for those that want to, once I've gone through the educational piece, people sometimes say, well, what else do you do, Aran? How can you maybe help me with my investing? If you want to stay on, I'll then cover our cash flow builder product, the way that we safely and securely build people an awesome portfolio, just literally 1 property at a time. So we'll cover that at the end for those that want to stay on and hear more about that. Okay, so in terms of myself, as I said, the best place to find out more about me is at www.arancurry.co.uk. But just very, very briefly, brief bit of background, I'm the founder of the Insight Group. The Insight Group is a group of 5 companies that come together to grow people really successful portfolios. We source awesome properties, we negotiate on them, we sort a solicitor out, we sort the mortgage out with our mortgage teams, we get the property bought, we then refurbish it for our investors, and then we find a tenant and we manage it with my lettings arm. So literally, our done-for-you service means that people are investing, they're putting their money in, and they're building a really awesome portfolio. And we've helped our investors, our clients, to buy over 1,000 properties in the last decade alone. I've personally now got over 200 properties in my own portfolio. So, and then our education arm, Property Investing Made Easy Education, we've helped to educate over 20,000 people in the last 3 years alone. That might be on a webinar, it might be my one-day events, which I'd love to see you at, it might be my 3-day mentorship program, and right up to people who pay me £25,000 for a year of one-to-one coaching. I just spend an hour a week with them, but it just really explodes their investing. By the time we finished the year, they're financially free or well on their way to being financially free. So, so that's a brief bit of background about myself. So, okay. Now, whenever I teach about property, what's really, really interesting is I went and studied about 3 or 4 years ago now, when I decided to seriously start educating people as well as providing our done-for-you service. We've done done-for-you. I've been investing for 20 years. We've been doing it for clients for a decade now. And about 4 years ago, I was challenged and people stretched me to say, look, you need to go and educate as well. Some people want it done for them, but some people just want you to teach them and they'll do it themselves. Some people do want that job, that property job. So I went and studied, and I studied successful people who'd become financially free through their property investing. Financially free being where they earn all the income they need to pay for their great lifestyle and maybe some great things on top of that as well. So 9 years ago, me and my wife Layla were lucky enough, blessed enough to reach that point. Okay, so we studied our journey. We looked at the few hundred other people that I'd helped to become financially free as clients, either with our done-for-you service or they'd attended my webinars and my teachings and gone and implemented them. And then I also interviewed 50 people who consistently made £100,000 plus a year through property. And I looked at what skill sets those people had that had helped them get to there. Then also I studied intelligent, articulate people, potentially just like you, who'd had this goal of getting financially free through property, had set off on the journey, but had fallen over on the way. They'd maybe only not bought anything yet, or bought 1 property, 2 or 3, but then they'd fallen over and stopped buying. And I said, you know, what skill set do those people have? And more importantly, what's missing? Why did some people get over here and others fall over along the way? And what was really interesting when I studied that in detail, there was 10 core skills that I worked out you need to have if you're going to become financially free. You have to have the skills and then take the action. You know, without the action, nothing happens. So you have to have the skills and take the action. That's why people love our done for you service, because we have all the skills and we also take the action for you. It takes that risk away. Okay, but when we identified the 10 core skills, then it was really easy for me to start to teach people and say, look, this is what you need to master. If you become an 8, 9, or 10 at each of these skills and you take the action, you'll get there. But sadly, if just 1 or 2 of those skills are missing, just 1 or 2, you might have 8 of them at an 8, 9, or 10, but if a couple are missing at just 4s or 5s, sadly, you're going to fall over. And that's really scary because people don't realize that. They don't realize what the core skills are. So this webinar is not about teaching you those skills, okay? But I've just put up on the screen those 10 core skills so that you can see what they are. You can see the things that you need to learn about, the things that you need to master to get to financial freedom. And they're chunked into 5 areas. I had a different webinar where I go through these in detail. Okay, same at my one-day event. Now, what we're going to do to start with, we're talking about only ever buying outstanding investment properties, making sure we buy outstanding deals. So how do we do that? Well, let's look briefly. When I teach all this stuff, by the way, there's about 20 days worth of content. That's right, 20 days. We've got an hour together now. But what we're going to do is skim into what I call the simple selection system. We need to be buying the right properties. So the first thing that we need to decide is whether we want to have what I call a property job, or whether we want to be a property investor. An investor, as I said at the beginning, trades their money for money. Somebody with a job trades their time as well. You might invest your own money still, but if you're trading your time to get a financial return, that's a job. Also, if you need to turn up for it to happen, if you were ill for 5 years and didn't show up, would it keep growing? Would it keep developing? Would it still happen? Then you're an investor. But if you're ill for 5 years and it wouldn't happen, then it's definitely a job. You see, when I started out investing, I had the job. Somebody else put the money in and I did all the hard work. I soon realized, well, after 14 months, I realized it was really hard work. I wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't enjoying the job side of it. I wanted to be an investor. Lucky for me, the guy that invested decided he liked the job side. So we were able to switch roles, which was brilliant. Okay, and me and Mark have bought 72 houses together. So, but you need to work out this piece first. Okay, clients that invest with me with our done for you service are clients who want to be an investor. Okay, they want someone to do this for them. So they literally have taken equity out of their own house, or they've taken cash that they've managed to save up or got in their business, and they're saying, I'd like to invest this and get a great return. And I know someone with experience will do this better than I will. People who want a job, want to do all the work themselves and keep managing the property themselves, then they don't use our done for you service, for example. Okay. So let's look at how do we make sure we only ever buy outstanding properties. I want you to imagine, if you would, most people will buy somewhere between 8 and 10 properties. That will be how many they need to be able to build a brilliant portfolio. So they say, hey, I'm only going to buy 8, let's say. My response is, and it's a strange question, I say, look, let's imagine for the rest of your life, from now until the day you die, the rest of your life, from your family, your loved one, your spouse, whoever it is, your children, you could only ever have 8 more presents, 8 more gifts. What type of presents would you like? You know, are you going to want the car wash kit? Are you going to want that set of pots and pans? Or now, you know, if I had open field and you were chucking out ideas, would you be saying, I'd like a Ferrari, please? I'd like some diamonds, please. I'd like a massive residential house. You know, if you could just only have 8 more gifts and you could have whatever you wanted, I'm sure you'd be pretty creative. There'd be pretty big wow factor things, okay? You know, if we go back to the diamond examples, you wouldn't say, I'd like 8 rubies. Or I'd like 8 lumps of coal, please, okay? You're going to go for diamonds. You're going to go for some real diamonds. So my comment to you is, listen, if you're going to buy only 8 more properties, these are actually the biggest gifts you will ever give yourself. Because if you get these right, if these are world class, they'll provide you with all the income you need and you can buy what gifts you want. But if you get them wrong, they might be mediocre performing, or they can be a world of pain if you bought the wrong houses, which many people do when they're starting out. Even when they're buying 3, 4, and 5, They buy the wrong houses and then they wonder why it's painful and not as much fun as it could be. Okay, so let's make sure we only ever buy outstanding. You see, at the Insight Group, when we're building portfolios for clients, we look at 100 properties. We've already, by the way, a property isn't just any property. We've already focused on the right areas. We're already laser focused. Then we look at 100 and reject 99% of them. 99 out of 100 just to recommend one to a client. Because we believe our clients deserve diamonds and that's what they employ us to get them. So for us, we're looking at, and what's the reasons that we reject 99 out of 100? Because they fail one of these rules. They fail one of what I call the 6 C's. The 6 C's. These are here, these are set up. You follow these 6 C's, you'll only ever buy diamond properties. You only ever buy diamond properties. They will look after you for the rest of your life in a great way. So let's go through and understand what the 6 C's are. Well, the first C is capacity. Capacity. You need to be buying properties and adding properties to your portfolio that are the right size. What is the right size? 3 and 4 bedroom. When we're talking family lets, by the way. So this webinar, I'm covering the golden rules for family lets, often called buy-to-lets. A property you're going to put a family in and rent it to. If you're going to do houses of multiple occupation or serviced accommodation, it's a different set of rules. I can't do all the rules and for all of the different strategies, but today I'm doing rules for family lets. So we need 3, 4 bedroom properties. So why not 1 or 2 bedroom? Definitely not flats and apartments, by the way. So why not? Well, first of all, you get a 1 bedroom property, someone moves in, then they fall in love with somebody else, they move out and move in with them. Okay, you get a 2 bedroom property, they move in with 1 child, they get pregnant, they're having a 2nd child, they need a 3 bed, they move out. Okay, so the average tenant change on a family let property costs on average £1,500. Once you've paid for the void period, for the letting agency fees, to titivate the wall, that you can't claim on the bond, but it still needs titivating because it's a bit tired now. It's £1,500. Sometimes it's 0, sometimes it's £3,000, but on average it's £1,500. So if you buy a property where the tenant on average changes once a year, that £1,500 bill over 10 years, over a decade, becomes £15,000. If you've got 10 of these, it's now a £150,000 mistake. In your properties, you want what I call lifers. People who say, I want to live here forever. My mum lives down the road. My dad lives up the street. My kids are at the local secondary school. I love it here. So they stay long term. When a lifer has the door handle breaks, they just fix it. When the wall needs decorating, they just say, do you mind if we paint it? You buy them the paint, they paint the wall, they deal with it. So you need to be buying 3 and 4 bedroom properties, flats and apartments. Too many on costs, too many service charges. The service charges normally are as much as, just for the outside of the building, as much as it costs to run a 3 or 4 bedroom house inside and outside maintenance wise. So, and you've still got the inside of the flat to look after. So 3, 4 bedroom properties, not flats or apartments. What's the second C? Well, the second C is city. City. You see, when we go to buy a property, we need to make sure we're buying in the right city. Family let is an investment strategy, investor. If you're putting your money out there to get money back, family let is a strategy you can use. The challenge with some of the other strategies, houses of multiple occupation, for example, that's a job strategy. If you're going to do HMOs, you need to manage it yourself, okay, for various reasons I don't have time to cover here. And if you've got a job strategy, holiday lets is the same, service accommodation, if you've got a job strategy, it's crazy to have a job 100 miles away. But if you've got an investor strategy, when I invest in the stock market, for example, if I said to you, I come from Yorkshire, so I only invest in Morrison stocks and shares, you'd switch off the webinar. You'd say, this guy's crazy. Morrison's come from Yorkshire, I'll only invest in them. This guy's crazy, his strategy's rubbish. So what am I doing when I invest in stocks and shares? What I'm doing, if I, for example, invest in Marks & Spencer shares, I'm saying I believe the management team of Marks & Spencer's, the board of directors, are going to outperform what the market believes they will achieve over the coming weeks and months. So I will back that expert world-class team to outperform the market. Now, here's the thing. Once you've picked your strategy, one of my other 10 definitions was, 10 core skills was building a world-class team, having a world-class team around you. So when you become an investor in property, you need to think the same as the stock market. You need to invest in the right city, which is like the right stocks and shares, Okay, you don't want to be investing in pharmaceuticals when they're on their way down. You invest in the right city, and you invest with a world-class team building that portfolio. And in that team, you need your mortgage broker, your property sourcer, your letting agent, your solicitor, your accountant, your financial advisor, your handy person, your refurbishment team of at least 17 different tradespeople. All of those people and more need to be world class, not ones and twos out of 10. When I first built my property portfolio, I was having disasters. My first 10 properties were a real mess. And in my team were people literally that were ones and twos out of 10 at their skills with regards to buy to let. I didn't check that. I didn't know it was important. Once you get a world-class team who are 10s out of 10s, you can have a disastrous day. In fact, you can be totally rubbish at something and you still get world-class results. How cool is that? You know, if you played football and in your team were 10 world-class football players, like world-class, the best in the world, and I could tie you up on the halfway line, tie your hands together, your legs together, just lie you down. You don't even know what the offside rule is, and you're still going to get outstanding results because of the other players in your team. But if you have a Sunday League Division 6 football team, your results are not going to be so cool. So how does this link to City? Well, you need to choose the right city. I'll give you an example. If I go 30 miles from where I live, I arrive in York. Beautiful town, picturesque, everybody knows, cathedral town, lovely. The trouble is, a 3-bedroom property in York might be 150,000 and it will rent for about £700 a month. Okay. Now, if I drive 5 miles the other way, I arrive in Scarborough. I can take my £150,000 and with that I can buy 2 properties worth £75,000 each. Okay, and those properties will rent for £560 a month each. So 560 times 2 is now 1,120 a month instead of in York just 700 a month. Now I know over time that the York market goes up the same as the Scarborough market. York's about a year ahead, so if York goes up 8% this year, Scarborough goes up 8% next year. If York goes down 3% this year, Scarborough goes down about 3% next year. Over time, they go up the same. So if the assets are going to increase in value the same over time, I know what I'd rather have. I'd rather have the 1120 of rent I'm getting for my 2 properties in Scarborough every month, an extra 420, which is an extra £5,000 a year, than the £700 of rent I'm getting in York. It just makes sense. So you've got to buy in the right city. Now, by the way, I'm not telling you to invest in Scarborough. You know, of the couple of 100 properties we bought last year for our investors, probably 4 or 5 were bought in Scarborough. There's even better cities than Scarborough, which is better than York, okay, in that example. So you need to buy in the right city. You need to learn where to buy and when to buy, okay? What's the third C? The third C is capital, C for capital. What do I mean by capital? You want to have in your investment outstanding capital growth. Now, over the last 85 years, the UK, including all the dips, the troughs, the flatlining, the UK has grown at an average of 7.9% per annum. Average. Okay, we've seen London growing faster than that over the last 5 or 6 years. Okay, the rest of the country will catch up. Look at land registry data for that. Okay, they all grow the same. But let's think of capital growth. We can speculate, we can take risks, we can take punts, we can say, I think they're going to regenerate this area, I'll buy a property here in the hope that they do. The challenge then, even if they were going to, if that gets delayed 10 years, which by the way, the councils, are they short of money? Yes. So could it get delayed? Yes. That gets delayed, now your money's stuck in an investment that was speculative and is now not growing. You know, if you're going to speculatively invest, you need to understand microeconomics. You're playing with the big boys. There are people that speculative invest that just cane it because they know exactly what they're doing. By the time you thought to do it, they were in 6 or 12 months ago. So instead, I prefer to just guarantee great capital growth, and 7.9% per annum on average is great capital growth. So how do I guarantee to get at least the average as a minimum? 4 simple steps. Buying a town or a city is the first. Okay, if you buy in a village, local factory closes down, 1,000 people lose their job, or 100 people, sorry, lose their job, you've got a problem. So buying a town or a city, buy close to a great secondary school, not primary, a great secondary school, buy on a great public transport network and a great road network. So town or city, close to great secondary school, great public transport network, great road network. If you tick all those 4 boxes, you'll get at least the national average, and the national average is awesome. On average, properties double every 8 or 9 years. I say work on 15, but they double every 8 to 9 years. Okay, what's the 4th C? We're buying 3 and 4 bedroom houses in the right city, close to great schools, good public transport network, good road network. The 4th C is cash flow. Cash flow. We're doing this, we need to make sure that our properties are going to cash flow well. Okay, now cash flow isn't rent minus mortgage equals profit. It's definitely not rent minus mortgage at today's crazy cheap rates equals profit. You need to factor in the mortgage, okay? But don't do it at today's rates. Look at what the banks are offering on a 5-year fix, for example, because it's a great indication of what they think they'll be charging for the next 5 or 6 or 7 years. In fact, they think the rates will be cheaper than that, otherwise they wouldn't offer to fix at that level. So, you know, so right now, that's nearly down at 3%, but let's say it's 4% to be cautious. Then factor in a bit of buffer. So it might be 4.5%. So I would do my mortgage at 4.5%. In reality, I'll get a 2-year deal for less than 3%. Okay, so you know, I might factor and plan and check it so that I'm covered for the next 7, 8, 9 years. I'll check it at 4.5%. Might be £300 a month on a particular property. The reality is I'll pay less than 200, but I've factored in the future. I've checked the cash flow. So I'll do rent minus that higher mortgage figure, minus the maintenance. You know, we manage hundreds and hundreds of properties for our clients. We know on average it's £1,000 a year per property. That's £80 a month. So let's factor that in. Let's plan for insurance. You know, let's say it's £20 a month for insurance. You'll get it cheaper, but £20 a month. Let's factor in for the letting agency. You say, I'm going to manage it myself. I say, well, what if you're ill? Plan for the letting agency. Then if you do it yourself, you'll save even more money. I don't recommend it, but you will. But plan for it as a buffer anyway. So you take the rent, you take away all of those costs, and you end up with a final figure. That final figure, to pass the cash flow rule, that final figure needs to be enough that if you made that profit for 11 months of the year, so let's say that figure's £100 a month and you made that profit for 11 months of the year, you'd have £1,100 in the bank account, as long as that is bigger than the rent. Because if the property is empty for the 12th month, if your profit you've made in 11 months is bigger than the rent for the 12th month, then the profit you've made will pay for the 12th month. Now, of course, you want that figure to be as high as possible, that £100 figure to be as high as possible. Okay, when we build portfolios for our done-for-you clients, we're looking for an 8% yield versus purchase price. That means we take the purchase price, let's say it's 100,000, the rent needs to be at least 8%. So over a full year, we need at least £8,000 worth of rent in that example. So if we're buying a £100,000 property, the rent we're going to get needs to be 670 as a minimum. Okay, that's what we do for our done-for-you clients. That gives you awesome cash flow. Okay, but as an absolute minimum, when you're checking your rules, that cash flow times 11 months needs to be bigger than the 12th month's rent. Why? The reason is that once you've bought that type of property, it will never, ever, ever need another penny from you. You see, I meet people in London at the moment, and their properties, family that in London doesn't meet cash flow. So they're buying properties that are cash flow negative. They're punting. They're going, well, the mortgage rates are cheap. It just covers itself. That means as soon as the rates go up even 1/4%, you're in trouble. If they go up 2%, you're in big trouble. You're upside down. They go, oh, it's okay, the asset's going up in value. Well, it doesn't go up in value every year. You should never buy properties that are cash flow negative. I don't care if you've got a £40,000 discount on a property. Do not buy it if it's cash flow negative. Reject. What's the 5th C? The 5th C is check. Most investors, even professional investors, forget this one. You see, people buy investment properties. They advertise them. Let's say 5 people respond to the advert to rent it. 2 people come and view it. 1 person wants it. You go, great, I've got a tenant. In reality, you didn't choose the tenant. They chose you. They were the only person that wanted your property. And then you wonder why you have a miserable time with them. They might play you up, not pay the rent properly, cause maintenance issues, and you're reluctant to throw them out because you're like, if I throw them out, I'll struggle to find someone else. That's what your brain's thinking. Now imagine a scenario where you, as soon as you've agreed to buy a house, you immediately advertise it to rent. You've not bought it yet, but you advertise it to rent. And what you're looking for when you do that is you're looking for a minimum of 10 replies in the first week. If you don't get those 10 replies, you walk away from the deal. You go, but it's going to cash flow £300 a month and I've got a great price and it's in the right city and it's the right size. No. You know, if only 5 people are interested, it's not going to cash flow what you think it will. But let's say 20 people reply, 10 people view it, 5 people want it. Now you can ask for bank statements, wage slips, references, guarantors, the works. If that puts one of them off or 2 of them off, you've still got 4 interested in your property. You are choosing the tenant, they're not choosing you. If that tenant plays you up in 12 or 18 months' time, you're not going to be scared of saying, look, pay up, be fair, otherwise you need to move out because I can easily replace you. So run that check before you buy the house. If you don't get at least 10 replies, walk away. What's the final C? The final C is contingency. Buffer, okay? If you're investing £100,000, keep 4.5% of it back for the rainy day buffer, okay? If you're investing, so that would be 4.5 grand in that example. If you're investing $1 million, you put 955,000 into the investment, you keep 45,000 back, okay? If you're investing 50,000, it's 2,250 that you're holding back. It's 47,750 that you're putting out there. Okay, you need to make sure that you're putting the right amount of money into your investments. Okay, the right amount of money into your investments. So that contingency will always protect you. If you've bought with the right cash flow and you've got that contingency in place, you know you are always protected. If you buy to those 6 C's every single time, you will buy diamonds. You will buy properties that will look after you forever. What I'll also guarantee you, though, is the opposite is true. If you just miss one of those 6 C's, especially if you miss 2, you'll have a world of pain. Those properties are not going to serve you long term. So they're the golden rules for outstanding properties. Let's think next. What did we say we'd cover next? We said we'd cover how do you make sure that your portfolio that you build, you're tax efficient like the professionals. Let's look at how a professional investor takes their profits tax efficiently, and you can do exactly the same even if you've only got 1, 2, or 5 properties. Okay. Now, there are 2 core principles to property investing. These principles worked before all the recent tax changes. They work now after all the recent tax changes. These principles work right the way through. Okay. So I want to teach you the 2 principles. So what I'd like to ask you to do is write down 2 statements, which are the principles, on your piece of paper you've got in front of you, and then I'm going to explain why I've made these statements. These will be your tax principles for the rest of your life in your property investing. So what are they? The first one is quite simple. Never, ever sell my investment property. So never ever sell my investment property. What's the second principle? The second principle is as the property goes up in value, people are more uncomfortable with the second one. As the property goes up in value, increase my debt against it. So as the property goes up in value, increase my debt against it. So you should have never ever sell my investment property written down. And as the property goes up in value, increase my debt against it. I know some of you will be uncomfortable with that second one, but let me explain why I've made those 2 statements. Okay. We want to be tax efficient on 3 counts. We want to be income tax efficient in property, capital gains tax efficient, and inheritance tax efficient. They're the 3 taxes that affect you. Okay. So how do we make sure we're efficient across all 3? We follow those principles. Let's deal with each one in turn. Okay, let's look first of all at income tax. Now, many of you on the webinar today, you will be in a situation where you were probably brought up by parents who said, debt is bad, pay debts off, save, it's really good to save, and those parents really served you because you wouldn't be in a position now where you're thinking of investing if you weren't brought up by someone who thought like that, if you weren't taught those principles. The challenge is those are the principles of a saver. Okay, someone safe and secure who saves. An investor thinks slightly differently. They understand that there is bad debt. but they also understand there is good debt, that debt can be a good thing if used correctly. You see, what investors understand, a bad debt is if you stay in bed all day and you get up at the end of the day, you've still got to pay certain bills. Your own residential mortgage, if you've got one, you have to pay it whether you use the house or not. That's a bad debt. Your car loan, your credit card bill, your overdraft, you have to pay them whether you use them that day or not. It's a bad debt. A good debt is a debt that somebody else pays for and it makes you money. So if you've bought an investment property and the rent that the tenant pays for the mortgage, the debt, and it makes you money as well, needs to meet that rule too. If it meets those two rules, now you've got a good debt. You see, people like Richard Branson, Alan Sugar, financially incredibly successful, whatever you think of them elsewhere, you know, they've got massive amounts of personal debt. People say, I didn't know that. They've massive amounts. But they know that if they borrow that money, they'll make even more with it. Branson, in fact, was quoted recently as one of his written goals is he wants to be one of the first men to die with £1 billion of personal debt. £1 billion. Now, I'm not telling you to go there, by the way, but I'm saying you need to be comfortable that there's good debt, bad debt. If you've not read it, there's a great book which is called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, an awesome property book, and it covers this in detail. So let's look first of all at income tax. Let's imagine a £90,000 property, £67,500 mortgage. It's on interest only at 4.5% to count that buffer in. So here's a cash flow example. In fact, here's the rent. Here's the different costs going out. So this particular property is making £219 a month. And in very simple terms, it's not this simple anymore with the tax changes, but very simple terms, you know, if you're a 40% taxpayer, that's what you pay tax on. If you're a 20% taxpayer, you pay 20% tax on it. If you're not a taxpayer, you don't pay tax on it. Very simple terms, a bit more complex than that, but just for the simplicity of what we're covering now, because we've only got 15 minutes to cover this piece. Okay. Now, if you want to know more about our tax stuff, just reach out to the team. I'll send you my tax webinar for free where I cover the tax changes in detail, by the way. So, okay. Now, let's assume we had two people. They bought identical houses. In fact, I'll take a couple of people on the webinar, Phil and Dave. Okay, Phil and Dave buy identical houses, semi-detached houses next door to each other. But Dave, although he's heard what I've just said, that paying off debt is bad, that an investment debt can be a good debt, his programming so strong in him. His programming so strong that he says, I get what you're saying, Aaron, I just can't help myself. My parents have programmed me so much, I've got to pay my debts off. So over the next 15 years, Dave works really, really hard to get this mortgage down to zero. Okay, so he's spent £67,500 of his own money. Over those 15 years, he's paid the mortgage down. Phil, in the meantime, has had that £67,500. He's been able to enjoy it and have fun with it, have some parties, or hopefully he's bought even more investment properties with it. So, but they live identical lives, identical stuff going on. What's the reward that Dave gets? So 15 years from now, he's paid the mortgage to zero. So the government come along and say, congratulations, you used your hard-earned cash that you probably already paid tax on to pay that mortgage down to zero, so you're now making another £250 on the bottom line. Because of that, even though you and Phil have got identical houses, identical tenants, same rent coming in, Dave, your reward is you're going to pay an extra £100 a month in tax. In fact, over a year, your bill will be an extra £1,200 in tax versus Phil's, even though everything's identical. Congratulations. You see, from an income tax point of view, that's crazy, isn't it? From an income tax point of view, if you pay the mortgage down, you pay more tax. It's as simple as that, even with the recent changes. So why would you pay the mortgage down? It's crazy. It's crazy. Don't do it. You pay more tax. Okay, now let's go back to Phil. Phil's sitting there smugly at the moment listening in. But Phil, you've got a problem as well. But your problem's a good one. Every single year, you're going to put your rents up 3 to 5% a year. We do that for our done-for-you clients. Always. I've done it for 20 years. People don't move out for the sake of £20 or £30 a month. So Phil's property, his rent was £650. It goes to £670 next year, £690, £710. So 3 years from now, he's making another £60 a month. The challenge for Phil is that £60 is going to drop on the bottom line. He's going to have to pay more income tax. We don't want to do that. So what does he do? Well, first of all, with inflation, the maintenance cost has probably gone up from £80 a month to about £90 a month, okay, with inflation. So that's cool. With inflation, the house will have probably gone up in value as well. So Phil remembers my teaching. He says, you know what, as the property goes up in value, that second statement, increase my debt against it. I can borrow 75% of whatever the new value is. So he goes to the bank and says, my property's gone up in value, can I borrow some more money? And the bank says, of course you can. You've put your rents up, so you've got extra money to pay for the mortgage cost. But if you do borrow more money, you'll have to pay more on the mortgage. Phil goes, that's fine, I've got the extra rent, that's not a problem. I'll come back to what he does with the extra money he borrows in a couple of slides' time. But right now, he borrows that extra money, his mortgage costs go up. For easy figures, I'll say they go up to 300. So now Phil's got an extra £60 of rent coming in, but he's got an extra 50 on the mortgage, 10 on the maintenance, an extra 60 going out. He stayed income tax efficient. He's going to get taxed basically only on the £219 of profit. He's income tax efficient. So as the property goes up in value, increase your debt against it, you stay income tax efficient. Now I know with clause 24, interest rate relief changes, that changes slightly. It does, but let me finish the picture and then we'll come back to that, because you still will follow these two principles, because it absolutely smashes any other way of doing it. So let's look at the next tax now, capital gains tax. Let's assume you've bought a property and over 15 years it doubles in value. Remember, on average it's every 8 to 9 years they double, but let's say it takes 15, it's 200,000. 15 years after that it doubles again, it's 400,000. Now if you sell that property for 400,000, the government are going to come along and say you've made a capital gain of 300,000. We're going to tax you, and if you're a 40% taxpayer, it's 28% tax on that gain. Your bill is £84,000. You sell it for 400, you pay that bill, you pay the estate agents, the solicitors, etc. You're probably left with 300k. Now, if you've had my teaching, you say, hang on, Aran said never ever sell. So what do we do? Okay, we can borrow 75% of what the house is worth, and the rent will pay for the mortgage anyway, no problem, and make a profit. So 75% of 400 is 300. I can borrow 300,000, so I end up with 300,000 in my pocket anyway. But the difference is I haven't had to sell. Why is that important? If you don't sell, this isn't a trick question. If it doubles in value every 15 years, what will the £400,000 property be worth 15 years from now if it doubles in value? That's right, it'd be worth £800,000. And whether you're here or not, 15 years after this, your family will be. If it's 800,000 it doubles again, what will it be worth? That's right, £1.6 million. So the person that sells the property loses the asset. The person that keeps it still got the 300k out, but they benefit from a further £1.2 million worth of gain for them and their family that the person that sells never gets. So never ever sell your property. I'm literally telling you to take your properties, to own them, to take them to the grave with you. I want you to own them the day you die. You can comfortably get buy-to-let mortgages to the age of 90. You can comfortably past then get commercial finance well into your hundreds. So you're literally going to own these properties till the day that you die. You see, here's the thing. What people don't realize, let's say sadly, let's say Phil passed away, sorry to do that to you, Phil, when this property is worth 800,000. So him and his family at that point have had a £700,000 gain, and he passes away. The capital gains tax, people don't realize this, gets written off the day that you die. So you've had that £700,000 gain in the family, it gets written off. There's no capital gains tax to pay. But if Phil had sold the property the day before he died, there'd have been a bill to pay 28% of that £700,000 gain, over £200,000 bill. It's just crazy, crazy, crazy money. Okay, so so what we're saying is, you know, you see people in the 60s and the 70s and they're rushing to sell their properties before they pass away. I'm saying die first. Die first. I'm not saying die earlier, by the way. I'm saying still die when you were planning to die, but sell the properties after. Let your kids deal with that. Okay. Let's finish off with inheritance tax. Okay, inheritance tax. So let's assume, you know, your first £325,000 of assets that you pass on to your kids goes tax-free. If you're in a couple, it's about £650,000. Okay, so but let's assume for simplicity that your own personal residence, your cars, your stocks and shares uses up your allowance, just for simplicity. So your portfolio is extra. Two examples. So David earlier on had paid his mortgages down to zero. So he's been getting hit for the last 30 years for extra income tax. It's crucifying him. On top of that, he now passes away. He's got £1 million portfolio, and it says to debt, but he's got no debt on this portfolio, no debt at all. Okay. Now the government come along to his children when he passes away. They say, look, you've got £1 million worth of equity here. The tax is 40% on that. You have a tax bill of £400,000. I need you to pay that in the next year. And his kids now have to raise that money in the next year. What's interesting is what people don't realize is what they'll also say to the kids is, listen, until that bill is paid, you can't have any of the rest of Dave's money. So if you sell his residential property first, and that's worth 300 grand, and you want to take 100,000 each, 3 children, you can't take it. Until the bill is paid, you can't have any assets. What they end up doing, let's say it's a flat market, make it even worse. They end up selling, they can't sell it quickly. They end up selling to somebody like me for 800,000, paying the tax bill. You know, Dave worked all his life to build this £1 million portfolio, and the kids end up with less than £500,000 when they inherit it. Crazy. Now let's look at Philip's option, because as the properties went up in value, he kept the mortgages at 75%. He kept increasing them. So he passes away, he's got £1 million portfolio, £750,000 worth of debt against it. Okay, so if you get taxed on the equity, 40% tax on the equity of 250,000 is only a £100,000 tax bill for Philip's kids. Same portfolio, but only a £100,000 tax bill. I know which one I'd rather have. Now, by the way, you can deal with that bill as well. If you get the right life covers in place, the right trust set up, you know, you can deal with that as well. I don't have time to teach that right now. Okay, I teach that to my mentorship students or my done-for-you clients. We sort that out for you. But you can see here that by following those 2 principles, we're being income tax efficient, capital gains tax efficient, and inheritance tax efficient. Now let's finish this piece off. Okay, the final challenge here, and by the way, there's about 15 minutes of the webinar left, 15, 20 minutes tops. So just if you're trying to plan your time. The final piece here is, you know, we're being really tax efficient, but you're going to need a lot of properties that are making you £219 a month to get financially free. So how do the professionals actually take their profits? Let me show you, because there's another way. We haven't finished. Here's how it works for the professionals. Let's imagine you had a £100,000 property, £75,000 mortgage on it, £25,000 worth of equity. Okay, and over the next 2 or 3 years, 4 years, however long it takes, it goes up 20% in value. So the property is now worth 120,000. Now you could go back to the bank and you say, hey bank, I've put my rents up, can I borrow 75% of the new figure? They say, of course you can. 75% of the new figure is 90,000. You pay off your old mortgage of 75,000 and you're left now with an extra £15,000 you've borrowed. And the bank, what they'll do is they'll put that into your current account. It's extra money you've borrowed, here it is. What are you going to do with it? They put it in your current account. Now, there's 3 things I want you to notice on this slide. The first is that your equity still increased. Even though you've borrowed more money, in this right-hand column, your equity has now gone up to 30,000, and it continues to do so as we keep doing this. The second thing I want you to notice is the compound effect, which I love. When it goes up 20% next time, it's 20% of 120, not 20% of 100. So next time, it's going to go up in value 24,000. We release 75% of that. We get to release £18,000. Okay, the time after that it's £21,000. This is an inflation-proof release. The third thing, most excitingly, is the money that you release is tax-free. It's money that you've borrowed, so there's no tax to pay. So you release that money tax-free. It's not an income. Okay, so I'm sure you'd understand if I said, hey, let's imagine you started with 2 properties like this. You buy 2, they go up in value 20%. You release 15,000 on the first tax-free, 15,000 on the second tax-free. That gives you £30,000. You take that £30,000, that's enough to buy a 3rd property. Now you've got 3 going up. Because there's 3 going up together, they don't need to go up 20%. They need to go up about 15% or maybe 13%. All 3 go up 13%. You release from each of the 3, and that gives you enough money to buy the 4th. Now 4 are going up. They only need to go up about 10% because there's 4 of them. There's more of them doing this. They go up about 10%. You release from the 4. You can buy a 5th. Now you've got 5 going up. It's faster. You buy a 6th, a 7th, and 8. It gets faster and faster and faster. And I'll show you an example in just a moment. Okay. Now Let's assume you build a portfolio. I meet you a decade from now. You started with just 2. But I meet you a decade from now and you've got 9, let's say, and they're worth about 150,000 each. Let's be cautious. They've only gone up 5% a year. The national average is 7.9% a year. Compounded over a decade, 5% growth compounded over a decade is half of the national average. So let's assume they've gone up 5% a year. They're worth about 150. So in your portfolio, you have 9 properties worth about 1.4 million. You've got about 1 million of mortgages and 350,000 of equity. And the mortgages, remember, are all being paid for by the rent, not by you. And each of those 9 houses is making a couple of £100 a month profit. So probably 20 grand a year or 2 grand a month, 25 grand a year of income from the rents that you have to pay tax on. But where are the professionals taking the profits? Well, let's say I meet you and you say, Aaron, I've bought enough houses now. It's brilliant. I've got 9 houses. I'm over the moon, but that's enough. So a year later, the market's gone up 5%. Your portfolio has grown by £70,000. Okay, I come back to you, I say on that basis, you're able to release a further 52,500 tax-free. You say, Aaron, don't you remember, it's great, I can release it just the same way as I have for the last 10 years to grow the portfolio, but I don't want to release it to buy any more houses. I don't want more houses. I said, that's cool. Let's release it anyway, as you said, in the same way as you've done for the last 10 years, but this time, why don't you take the money and buy a car? This time, why don't you take the money and have a holiday? This time, why don't you take the money, quit your job and live off it? Next year, you see, you can release £55,000. It's inflation-proof tax-free. The year after, £58,000 tax-free. This is an inflation-proof release, and it's tax-free. It's like earning £70,000 or £75,000 in today's money before tax. So this is how professionals take their profits, through these releases. Yes, you've got rental profits too, cash flow profits that you have to pay tax on, but you've minimized that and you're taking your main profits from the releases. Now, people sometimes say, look, it's not going to go up at 5% a year in a flat system. It doesn't. That's true. Some years it goes up double digit, 10%. You can release 105,000. You have to be sensible. Spend what you plan for, 52,500. The other 52,500 goes in the contingency pot. Does that for 4 or 5 years, you've built up your pot. Then you have 4 or 5 years of flat period, you live off that spare pot. If on average it goes up at 5%, this is what you can release on average. Okay. Once you understand this, you can work out what size portfolio you need. You might go, I think it'll only go up 4%, but I only need 30,000 a year tax-free. Well, on that basis, 30,000 a year tax-free means 40,000 of growth. On 4%, that means you need £1 million portfolio. Somebody else says, well, I want 60,000 tax-free, but I also believe it'll only go up 4%. Okay, well, that's 80,000 of growth to get 60,000 release. 80,000 of growth at 4%, you need a £2 million portfolio. Once you get this, you plug the figures in. We do this for our done-for-you clients. You know what size portfolio you need. Then you get on and grow it. Then you're there. You take the profits, and you've got the cash flow profits on top. If you're not smiling, by the way, stop and smile. This is amazing. Okay, this is how you take your profits. So, summary: never ever sell your investment properties. As the property goes up in value, increase your debt against it. Use this strategy on 1, 2, or multiple properties and gear at 75%. Gearing is how much you borrow from the bank. You can get mortgage finance, by the way, at 80 or 85% right now. Don't go there. It's in my interest to tell people to go there because on our done-for-you service, we could buy you even more houses if you put less deposit down. But for me, you want to always have headroom. I saw too many people in the credit crunch get themselves in trouble because of lack of headroom and lack of cash flow. That's why we have the golden 6 C's. That's why I say you do need to leverage at 75%. Keep your debt high, but don't go too high. Okay, so there we go. Now, what we're going to do, let's just finish off these last 15 minutes. I want to ask you a question. If I could show you how to take, for example, £105,000 investment, and I could show you over the next decade how to build that into a release income of £40,000 per annum, and on top of that, maybe £20,000 per annum of rental profit, would that potentially be of interest to you to see how you could do that if I showed you how to build a portfolio like that? Okay, just so I've got a feel in the audience of whether you want to see how I'd put a portfolio together. So you either want to tick yes, please, maybe would like to see more, or no, thank you, just here for the education. So just if you can click on that as quickly as possible, I'm going to grab a very, very quick drink, okay, and then we'll get in and show you that. So please, please just click. I know you've been listening for a long while, but just click as quickly as you can for me so I know I've got a feel of which of you in the audience want to see what, and then we'll move forward accordingly. Okay, so we've got about 80% of the audience are saying they want to, yes please, they're definitely interested in that, would like to see more, and about, in fact, about 15% of you, so there's 85 saying yes please, and about 15% are saying no thanks, I'm just here for the education, which is totally cool, totally cool. So, okay, so let's, because there's so many of you that want to see this, let's just spend the last 15 minutes together, or last 13 minutes together, and let's just go through how you build a successful portfolio. I'm going to show you our cash flow builder model, how we build people for a really small investment, really minimal investment, how we build people outstanding portfolios. So what I want to say to you first of all is, listen, we've already talked about investing, family-led being an investment strategy. You need to build your property business, whether it's, whatever you think of business people, whether you have one property, 5, 10, it's a business. It needs to be a profitable business that works and grows without you. You don't know when you're going to be ill for 5 years. You don't know when your loved ones will be ill for 5 years. This needs to work and grow without you. So how does Cash Flow Builder work, our done-for-you service? Well, the first thing is, when we're investing for you, you need to know you're going to have total peace of mind. So you need to know that every single property we buy for you is going to meet those 6 C's. It's going to be diligently picked. By the way, it isn't easy to meet those 6 C's. I didn't say this was easy. You know, if you're going to get 8 diamonds, you don't go just pick diamonds up off the floor. They're hard to get. But we're outstanding at this. We have over 5,000 property sourcing contacts who send us deals every single month. We sift through all of those deals to buy our clients these 30 properties a month that are meeting those 6 C's, real diamond properties. Okay? And because we're buying 30 a month and a client on average buys 3 when they get going with us, different people buy different amounts. Some start with 1, some start with 10. But on average 3, that means we can take on 10 new clients a month. That's it. So we buy to these golden 6 C's. It's safe and secure because it meets all of those 10 core skills. We've built that all into the model. There's no tie-ins of any kind. It's bespoke. I'm going to show you an example in just a moment, but we bespoke it to you. Some people have got more money to start with. They want to get financially free quicker. Other people have got a lot less money. You know, they might start with £35,000. They only start with 1. It's going to take them longer, but they're on the journey. They got started. You know, an average investor puts somewhere between 105 and 140,000 in with us. Starts with 3 or 4 properties, as I said. So, but everyone's at a different place. Some people put the money in and then need to take it out as they're going along. Other people, you know, are releasing equity from their own residence to invest. So they need to draw back out of the investment enough cash flow to pay the interest on that mortgage. You know, other people say, I put my money in for 20 years, I don't need to touch it. Build me as big as you can. Everybody's different. It's bespoke and it's personal to you. Just as a little aside, if you work with us on our done-for-you service, once you get to your 4th property, okay, it says 2 there, which is actually a mistake. Once you get to your 4th property, then basically you get all of my educational stuff for free. So what's all of my educational stuff? Well, all of my educational stuff is over £20,000 worth of value. It's my full mentorship, where I mentor you for a whole year. You can ask me any question you want for a whole year on a private forum. You can literally you can literally attend my 3-day event as many times as you want. So hear me teach you live in person those 10 core skills. So etc. 60 hours of online training, etc. Some people go, I don't need any education. You're doing it for me. Just get on and do it. I'm an investor. I don't need teaching, and that's cool. Other people say, do you know what? I want to get the education as well, because if I get the education as well, I can keep checking you're doing it right. Finally, some people go, I'll let you buy my first few while you educate me, and once you've educated me, I'll go do it myself, and that's cool as well. Okay, that's cool as well. So just to make you aware of that, I've changed that to 4 properties there, so you can see that that's the correct information. So that's the summary of Cash Flow Builder. Let's look at an example. So let's assume somebody had £105,000 to invest. Okay, you keep control of that in your bank account. Okay, you're not giving it to us and we've taken it to the Bahamas. Let's go buy you some investment property. So the first property, let's assume the sweet spot for family let right now is between £70,000 and £70,000 and £130,000. That's the sweet spot when you're trying to find the best possible properties in the UK. Okay, the reason I say that is that's where the best yields are. And if you want to check that, go look for a £100,000 house anywhere in the UK. Okay, and it will rent for approximately, let's say, 600. In the same area, go on Rightmove, look for a house you can buy for £200,000. And then look at the rent, and it won't be double. It won't be £1,200 in that example. It might be £1,100 or even £995 in that example. So the sweet spot for your returns is 70 to 130. Okay, so let's look at a £90,000 example here on the screen. So this £90,000 property, you're going to buy it, put a 25% deposit down. So it's a £22,500 deposit. Now, by the way, this property, it's a 3-bedroom. This is in Leeds. Great rental returns there. It's actually an end terrace. It looks like a semi. You know, your heart might be going, I don't want to live there. I don't care whether you want to live there or not. If 20 other people want to live there and it meets all the rules, it's an investor. An investor thinks with their head, not their heart. When you buy your residential property, think with your heart. When you buy an investment property, think with your head. Okay, so we put down our deposit, we buy the house. Now, whenever you buy an investment property, whether you buy one with us or you buy it yourself, you've got other costs and fees associated. And I wanted to list them all for you to help you. So an average investor, if you buy a £90,000 property, you'll have a solicitor that's about £1,000, including searches. Mortgage valuation, £350. Your gas check, your energy performance certificate, about £130. I've budgeted for refurbishment. You know, we refurbish 15 properties a month. So that would be a kitchen, £3,000, probably a kitchen, a bathroom, and redecorate throughout. Okay, because we really push them down on the price. We get great value. Okay, so you might spend a bit more if you're doing it yourself. Tenant find is covered. Mortgage broker is covered. Stamp duty, sadly, we have to pay 3% of the purchase price in stamp duty and tax. So an average property purchase at £90,000, including the refurbishment and getting it tenanted, might have about £8,000 worth of associated fees. Okay, so if we go back to that example we had, you've spent £22,500 on the deposit plus £8,000 in associated fees. That's £30,000 you've put into the pot. Okay, now there are different ways to source houses. You can go do all the work and try and find houses to the 6 C's yourself, and that will save you paying someone else to do it. You could Google property sources. You could go right now, Google property sources. A whole raft of people will come up offering different deals. In that raft, there's some great people, there's some unethical people, there's some really bad people. Okay, there are some great deals. There are deals that people show you that they say, oh, it's worth 120 and you can get it for 100. It's actually worth 100. Or look, it's on Rightmove at 105, you can get it for 90. It's actually worth 90. It just happens to be on Rightmove for more. You know, or it's going to cash flow 300 a month, but then you look carefully and it's rent minus mortgage at today's crazy rates is £300 a month, not rent minus all those other things. If you're going to use a sourcer, a typical sourcer charges £3,000 to source you a property. But what they then do, they put you in touch with the vendor. You then deal with everything else. So you deal with the vendor, you deal with the solicitors, you deal with the mortgage broker and sorting your mortgage and picking your deal. You deal with refurbishing it all yourself, and then you deal with picking the letting agent. And long term, you have to deal with the property and when to refinance and what to do. The sourcer is just involved at the beginning, puts you in touch. A great sourcer can be really valuable, by the way. But in that scenario, you know, they charge £3,000. We're not a sourcer. One of our products we have where you joint venture personally with me, it's called Portfolio Builder. I'm not covering it here. You know, your fees on that are about £7,000 a property. You get what you pay for, but then you've got me in the game, my personal skill, and I'm investing with you. You know, you're putting the money in, I'm personally with my team putting all the work and effort in. Costs a lot more. So, but Cash Flow Builder, you know, I said, really, we want to make this really easy, a no-brainer. The investment that you make is absolutely minimal. So what we do on Cash Flow Builder, let's look at our costs and fees. So when you work with ourselves, okay, what we do is we're going to source a great property for you that meets all the 6 C's, but you're never going to need to deal with the vendor. We'll do all the dealing with the vendor and the negotiating. We will help you to find the right solicitor for you. We will sort out your mortgage, make sure you're going to be on the best possible deal. We will make sure that the property then gets refurbished. We'll sort all of that. You get our tradespeople refurbishing it. So suddenly you've got this world-class team that we've built over the last 2 decades, and they're your team. You didn't need to build the team. You didn't need to learn to find the properties. You didn't need to learn to choose the right mortgage. You didn't need to learn to refurbish at the right capacity. We then find the brilliant letting agent, which will be Rental Insight, and they manage the property for you. Now, on top of all of that, you can do any of those pieces yourself if you want. If your best friend is one of those, a letting agent, you can use them. You're not tied to us, but you'll realize our people are world class. But the real secret when you're building a portfolio, by the way, if you've got 3 properties to start with, it's somebody saying, do you know what, if you release money out of property 1 and 3, you can now buy number 4. 4 and 2, you can now buy number 5. 5 and 1, you can now buy number 6. It's tracking that over 12 years. If you track that really carefully, you'll probably knock a couple of years off your term. Every 6 months, we'll review what we've bought for you and any other properties you've already got. We'll tell you what you can release, what we'd recommend you do, and we'll build this as quickly as possible in a safe, secure manner. And all of that tracking comes in what we do. For all of that, remembering that a typical sourcer who just introduces you to a vendor is £3,000 plus VAT. We just charge your investment is £3,500 plus VAT for each property we source for you. Okay, 3.5, and that it says there minimum of 12 years. We'll track it for at least 12 years. If you want us to track it for longer, we'll track it for longer. Okay, and we've both got the same skin in the game, because if we're tracking it and showing you what you can release and when, you'll buy some more. We make more money. You make more money. If we buy you outstanding properties that perform really well, you'll be able to release from them. We make more money. You buy more. You make more money. We've got joint skin in the game. Okay. The only other way we make our money is if you use our letting agency. You're not tied to them in any way, but every investor we've ever had has used them. Once you see they're world class. Our letting agency fees, typical cost is 400 plus VAT for a tenant find and 10% plus VAT for management. For absolute clarity, because I don't want you to mix this up with our portfolio builder product, people mix the two up. They say, Aaron, I've heard you take a share of the equity. I do on the portfolio builder product. That's a different product, okay? But on cash flow builder, no profit share. That's it. So we're sourcing you outstanding properties. We're negotiating on them. We're sorting the mortgage, the solicitors. We're getting them bought. We're refurbishing them. We're getting them managed. Everything's done for you, and then we manage it for the next 12 years plus £3,500 plus VAT. Okay. So let's go back to the scenario. If you've invested £105,000, you spent about £30,500 on the property. And in this example, you spent £3,500 plus VAT with us, which is just over £4,000. You've spent $34,500 with your pot. So with 105,000, that's why we say you can get started with 35,000 if that's what you've got. Okay, people invest anywhere from 35,000 up to $750,000 with us. Okay, so and as I say, people normally start at this 105 level or 140. Let's assume you started with 105. What we do in the first 6 to 12 weeks, we'd buy you 3 of these. 35,000 for the first one, 34.5 for the second, 34.5 for the third. You've now got 3 properties all up and running, all cash flowing. Remember, these are 8% yielders, so cash flowing brilliantly. Let's say at least £200 a month. So you've got at least £600 a month of profit after cost coming in, hitting the bank. Probably a lot more because we plan worst case, don't we? Okay. These 3 properties are now in your portfolio. Let's assume they don't go up in value at all in the first year, and then they go up at 5% a year thereafter. Okay, so if that's the scenario, these 3 properties over the next 3 years, they're going to become worth $102,500 when you mock that through. You go back to the bank, you say, can I borrow 75% of that, please? They say, yes, that's just under £77,000. You say, great, can I borrow that? They say, yes. You pay off the old mortgage of 67, you've released £9,500 on property 1. Across 3 properties, you're able to release just over £28,000. Now, your properties have also been making rental profit of over $200 a month, but let's assume they only make $125 a month, about $1,500 a year per property. That means over the last 3 years, these properties made you, let's say, about £15,000, £14,000. You put that together with the £28,000, you've got 42. That's enough now in your pot to buy property for. Now, If you were taking those rental profits and spending them and having fun with them, that's fine. This is where we bespoke it. It might take you 4 years to get the fourth property. Other people might have added to the pot with other money they've got. Okay? It's totally up to you whether you add to it or subtract to it. That's your choice. You do what you want to do. But in this scenario, I'm sure you can see, you've basically got enough now to buy property 4. By the end of the 4th year, you've got 4 properties in your portfolio. You only started with £100,000. And even though each of these properties you've had to pay £8,000 of upfront costs and fees to refurbish it, to buy it, the solicitors, etc., that's a one-off fee. You never pay those costs again. Once you've bought those properties, £8,000 times 4 properties, you don't have to pay that cost again. It's a one-off. Okay, so that money's spent. So even though you've spent that money at the start of the investment, you've got 41% growth on your money. You are not getting this in the bank over 4 years. You're probably getting 4% if you're lucky. You're not getting it sat in equity in your house. Whether you do it with me or not, please, please buy property. It's great. Now let's take these 4 properties. They go up in value over the next couple of years. We can now release from the 4 properties. Okay, we release from all 4 properties about £12,000 per property. That gives us enough, along with the rental profits, easily enough to buy property number 5. So by the end of year 6, you've got 73% growth, and this is just based on 5% growth in the market. And then let's take that forward. You know, year 7, you can release 34,000. You need 44,000, so you can't buy another one. So you say, sadly, I can't buy another one. I'll stick with 5. Year 8, though, you can release 68,000. That's enough for another one. You buy it. You got 6. By then, you're buying 1 property a year. By year 13, by the way, you start to buy 2 properties a year in this example with a £105,000 build out. So here's where the magic happens. Here's the key figure. The right-hand column is the one that you really want to be looking at. Okay, if you've invested £105,000 and you stop after 7 years, let's say, this is what you can release tax-free based on 5% growth. So 105,000 in, you're now releasing 23,400 per annum tax-free. On top of that, let's say it's £2,000 profit per property. That times 5 is 10,000. So in this example, you're on £33,000 a year, most of it tax-free. Some of you go, that's brilliant, that's all I need, I can retire. Other people go, I need more than that, Aaron, and I've got more time. So what would it be after 10 years? Well, after 10 years, 43,000 per annum tax-free in the right-hand column, and your 8 properties at £2,000 per property is £16,000 a year of rental profit. You're on 59,000 a year. Some people go, no, I want to wait 12 years. 12 years' time, £60,000 tax-free, which is like the equivalent of earning £85,000 before tax, and 10 properties at £2,000 a property, you're on 20,000 of rental profit on top of that. It's the equivalent of earning more than £100,000 a year before tax. You invested 105,000, you're now earning more than 100,000 a year. Okay, this is what we do. We have a spreadsheet. We can drop your figures in it. Speak to the team. We can put in 150,000, show you what that would do. 300,000, show you what that would do. You might want to stop after 3 years, after 10 years, whatever it is. And this is all built and done for you. Let's finish off with the guarantees. We guarantee you'll have total peace of mind because we're going to buy to those 6 C's. We're going to make sure we only buy outstanding properties. We guarantee it's bespoke and personal to you. We know that your properties will rent. Even people say, well, you're going to refurbish it at the beginning. What if you find damp or what if you find other issues in there? We're going to do all of that for you and get that done. So we guarantee, they normally we get them refurbished and rented within 5 weeks, but we guarantee they'll be rented within 10 weeks that first time out of the gate. We guarantee to look at 100 properties, outstanding properties, not just random properties, 100 outstanding, just to recommend you one. And most importantly, you have total control, no tie-ins. Okay, this is cash flow builder. Okay, you get all of my educational piece in with that, the 3-day event, my online stuff, 60 hours of online training. You can do whatever time of day or night you want. Access to me personally as a mentor, where I mentor you for a whole year. All of that's included. You know, here's an example: 75,000 investment. 75,000 investment. After 9 years, you're on 28,000 a year. After 12 years, you're on nearly 50,000 a year, 48,000 a year, even with just 6 properties. And there's the 105,000 investment just pulled out into words. Okay. What I'm going to ask you, because we want to follow up with people who are potentially interested, we have 10 slots each month to work with people. Those 10 slots go quickly. We run 4 events a month where we're out speaking to people live in person. My events have 100+ people at them, and we get loads of interest for these slots. We then have one webinar each month, occasionally 2, but one webinar each month where we share this, and then we'll get our clients. We get the clients we need. So it's fine if this isn't for you. It's fine if it is, but if it's potentially for you, we'd love to explore it with you. So I'm going to put up just another poll that will give you the ability to say you'd like to just follow up and learn a bit more about this. Okay. Now, if you're interested in taking, in exploring this, what we'll do is we'll send you out an email tomorrow. We'll send you a recording with everything we've just been through. We'll send you the spreadsheet. You can drop your own numbers in. You can say, what if I add to that? What if I take away from that? How does this look? And the team will just talk you through it. We want you to be able to do all your due diligence. You can't just spend an hour listening to me and go, oh, this is a great guy, I'm going to invest. You want to do your due diligence. You want to just check out how it works. But we have never, ever, ever, ever made the investment this small. We're doing volume now. We're able to source 30 properties every month to these outstanding rules, and therefore the investment has come down to $3,500. The investment, the minimum investment historically, many, many years ago before inflation, was $5,500, and it's been at £7,000 for the last 4 or 5 years. Okay, so this allows you to get in and build an outstanding portfolio. So if you'd like us to follow up with you, if you'd have an interest in having one of those 10 spaces potentially, but we understand that you need to do your due diligence, you need to check us out, I'm going to launch up the poll and just ask you to click. So you may click, in fact you probably will, and say, yes, please call me, I'm interested. Remember, you need to have a minimum of £35,000. Typical investment is 105 to 140, and it goes right up the way to, people have invested up to $750,000. Yes, please call me, I'm interested. You might say, I am really interested, but I'd like to just meet Aran in person. I'd like to see the whites of his eyes, meet his team. Then you can come to one of our discovery days. We run them once a month in London and once a month in York. You can come along. They're not an education day. They're specifically about this product. We can just go through it in more detail, and you can ask questions in person. So you may say, yes, can I attend one of the discovery days, and tick that box. Okay. You may say, I want to come and visit your office, Aran. I've heard you on the webinar. You might have even seen me at an event, but I've not been to Scarborough to visit the team. There's over 40 members of team that deliver this awesome service. I get to talk about it, get the glory. They're doing all the hard work. So you could come and meet them, see them in person. We're the biggest portfolio building company in the UK, both in terms of size of team, numbers of clients that we're looking after, number of properties that we're buying. You might be just a maybe. You might say, well, maybe I'm interested. I'm not sure. Can you send me some more information? Then we send the emails and stuff out to you. Or you might be a no, thank you. I'm just here for the education. So I'm going to ask you to please, whichever you are, to hit one of those buttons. Whichever you are, you can definitely hit one of them. So if I can ask you as quickly as possible to do that, there's about 50% of you have clicked, but there's another 50% that still need to click. So I'm going to grab another quick drink. While I'm doing that, please click one of those buttons straight away, and then my team know who to follow up with, because they just want to work with the people that are definitely interested either in a discovery day or definitely clearly interested or want to visit us, and they want to get you everything you need over the next 21 days so you can make a decision. You can either say, this is for me, this is a great company, or this isn't for me. We know of those people interested, about 1 in 3 go ahead. About another 1 in 3 will go ahead in the future because the timing's just not right, and 1 in 3 will go, this isn't for me. And we're cool with that. We're totally cool, but we want to know who you are so we can get you the info so you can decide one way or the other. So go ahead, click right now. I'm going to grab a quick drink, and then I'll be back with you. Okay. Cool. Okay, I can see most of you have now clicked. Can I just ask the last few of you to get clicked? We've got about 70% of you are wanting to follow up with a yes. So either, yes, please call, I'm interested, yes, discovery day, yes, visit the office. There's about another 20% in may be interested, and there's 10% of you which is totally cool going, no, thank you, I'm just here for the education, and that's great as well. I have no problem, that's great. You've got great education tonight, I'm sure. So if I just ask the last few of you to click, otherwise my team will be reaching out and calling you anyway because they don't know which one you are. So, okay. So let's finish off. I know lots of you have been asking questions in the question box. What I want to do is make sure that whatever questions you ask get thoroughly answered, and we don't have time to answer them all on the webinar today. So what we're going to do, I'm going to ask my team to reach out to you in the next 24 hours and make sure whatever personal questions you've asked, however simple and small or big, they'll reach out to you and answer those. They will call from a Scarborough number, which is 01723. We're not British Gas. We're not BT. Please don't reject the call when they call you. They're calling because you've said you're interested. They're calling because you've said you've got a question, and they'll just call and answer it. If you're just asking educationally, they'll just call and answer it. So we'll deal with the questions in that way. Okay. Now, just to finish off the actual webinar itself, then I suppose it would be remiss of me. A couple of you have asked specific questions about the Discovery Day. You've said, you know, do we have to pay for that? Well, the Discovery Day normally is £297, okay? £297, but we make it totally and utterly free. Okay, if you've been on our webinars, you're saying I'm definitely interested, you're committing to spending a day with us, let's make it free, let's enable you to come along and spend that day with us, okay? If you don't want to wait for the team to call you tomorrow and you want to just go ahead and book on that Discovery Day, you can go to www.arancurry.co.uk/EXP and you can book on. You'll get the dates there for the next London one, the next York one. Just get yourself booked in, get yourself booked on, okay? Now, final piece, for those of you that have said, you know what, I love this, it sounds great, but it's not quite right for me, what else do you do? Just to let you know what our other products are very, very briefly. And by the way, if you click to say you're interested in these, you're not saying anything other than, will you just send me an email with some more information? The team will send you an email out that has the relevant information for that product. They're not going to suddenly chase you, harangue you, everything else. Of course, if you tick all four, remember you're going to get 4 separate emails. So you might be interested in my Portfolio Builder joint venture. That's where you joint venture with me. You put the money in, me and my team put all the time and effort in, and we share the spoils, either 50-50 share, depending on, or you pay some fees as well. And if you pay the fees, it might be a 75-25 split or an 82-18 split in your favor. So if you want more information on joint venturing with me, where I've personally got skin in the game, but I take a share of the profit, tick that box. You might want education. Those of you who ticked, I'm just here for the education. My mentorship program, all of the education we provide is available for less than £2,500 investment, and that can be offset against your tax as well, which makes it, you know, well under £2,000. So if you're interested in that, tick Property Mentorship Academy. You might need a letting agent. If you've got properties anywhere from Northampton up to Newcastle, West Coast to East Coast, we have outstanding letting agent. Our head office is based at Scarborough. We've got a team on the ground that do the viewings, handle the tenants, do the inspections. You know, we've got a team out on the ground. So you want to tick Rental Insight if that's of interest. And then Cash Flow Builder is what I've covered today. I'm sure you've already ticked for that, but you can just tick again there if that's of interest. So again, if any of those interest you, just click as quickly as you can to go ahead with that. Remember, it's www.arancurry.co.uk/EXP if you want to book onto that Discovery Day. Okay, so we're going to wrap up now. I really, really hope that you found the webinar of great value. I hope you buy diamond properties, whether you buy them with us or not. Make sure you buy diamond, okay? I hope you take your profits tax efficiently, which I'm sure you will now you've understood how that works, okay? And by the way, to finish off that tax stuff, you know, people say, well, with all the changes, will I pay more income tax now? That was one of the questions I've seen coming in. You will, if you're a 40% taxpayer. If you're under a 40% taxpayer, you won't. If you're a 40% taxpayer, it will increase your income tax bill. You know, get my team to send you the tax planning webinar that I have. And then you've got 10 mitigation strategies to mitigate it. But if you're above that threshold, you put those mitigation strategies in play, you might pay an extra £2,000 or £3,000 a year of income tax. But when you're comparing that with releasing £50,000 a year tax-free, this is still the best setup. What I've taught you today is the right way to set up and structure, follow those 2 core principles. They work before the tax changes, they work after. I'd rather get 50,000 tax-free and have to pay an extra £3,000 than go, well, I don't want to pay the £3,000, so I'll pay my mortgages off, and I can't get the £50,000. Just really short-sighted. So I hope that makes sense. So, okay, Lots of you have asked for more information on Portfolio Builder. Lots of you have asked for more information on Mentorship Academy. A few of you on Rental Insight. We will get that information out to you again in the next 48 hours. You will have all of that information. Okay. So, very best wishes with your property investing. Remember, invest with knowledge, invest with confidence, create financial freedom. We've been here, we've bought 1,000 properties for our clients in the last decade. We can do it for you too. We would love to explore that with you. We'd love to build you an outstanding portfolio. If you need to release money, you need to release equity, we can arrange that for you as well, or we can arrange a free review to see what you can release so you can work out if you can release and what you can release to be able to move forward. With us. So really wish you the best with your property investing, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much.